Let's get moving on now. John Blicq is joining us. He is the founder of Innovation Matters Proprietary Limited, a consultancy that specialises in innovation management. He is an explorer of possibilities, ranging from competing at the national level in martial arts to backpacking around the world and devouring dozens of books every year. John has explored many paths in his career that has taken him throughout Europe and the Asia Pacific, gaining experience from cleaning dishes on the night shift in a hotel to entrepreneurship and management consulting to heavily participating in the development of multiple startups and managing the innovation practice for a large bank assurance company. Correct? You might explain to us what that is in your presentation. John is passionate about how technology married with human psychology can transform the world for good. His book, Digital Twins, The Next Human Revolution, note the R, focuses on how current technology can fully replicate both human physical and intellectual attributes to enable the creation of exact digital replicas of ourselves. These so-called digital twins will ultimately act on our behalf in the digital world. Could be scary stuff. Now, John's book is not about science fiction, it's a business book. It's anchored in emerging technology with the potential to significantly disrupt the financial services industry. The book is destined to inform key decision makers in financial services and help them prepare their organisations to stay relevant in a world where they will not only deal with physical customers, but also their digital twins, our digital twins. Would you please welcome to the State Library of New South Wales, John Blicq.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So, I'll break the news. I'm John Blicq, and I am an explorer. My domain of expertise is in strategy and innovation management. For the last decade, I've been exploring the world of financial services to understand its future. My job is to try to identify and make sense of emerging technologies, emerging societal trends, emerging value pools, and understand the changing nature of the competitive landscape. But more importantly, how the combination of these parameters are going to disrupt banks and insurers. From understanding these emerging risks, which also are emerging opportunities, then how do we create a response through the build of strategic capabilities? My approach of digital twins is centered around understanding the impact on the financial services value chain. Should digital humans, and by extension digital assets, reach scale? This book is positioned as educational and is aiming at company directors, company executives, strategists, management consultants who wants to understand the possible future and impact on their businesses. But allow me to start this presentation by running you through a quick thought experiment. In the next slide, I will narrate a story, and you will decide if it is science or science fiction. This story is designed to illustrate the world we could soon live in. It is 6:30 a.m. on the 14th of July, 2031. Your smart implant gently buzzes your cerebrum to wake you up. You get out of bed, and your tailored information feed is projected onto your optic nerves. During the night, your portfolio has grown slightly above system, boosted by your digital IP and your NFTs. Today, you have 126 meetings scheduled. Only 3 require your attendance. Your digital doctor at 10 for your annual checkup. The report will be shared with your bank and insurer for underwriting review. Your digital IP license renewal with your main client at 11. You will be handling your negotiation with your client, and your digital twin will be dealing with their bot lawyer. Be confident, your results have been outstanding. Your digital IP delivered outputs ranking in the top 5% of their digital employees. And your compliance with meeting the SLAs have been registered on your private blockchain. Your last meeting is with your digital banker at 3 p.m. Be ready for this one, as you are likely to get a new home loan thanks to the financial performance of your enhanced digital twin. You have trained it for months with new IP downloads to generate 33% more income with your target audience. You get in the shower for a fresh start. Meanwhile, you ask your digital twin for an update on the work achieved last night. There were 36 transactions for a total of $3,000. 70% of this transaction processed with other digital twins, 27% with digital humans, and 3% with humans. Now that you are refreshed, it's time for a morning walk on the beach with the family. Now, what you need to understand is that maybe this world will never materialize. But what if it did? The consequences for you would be absolutely massive. And let me break the news to you. Your bank and your insurer cannot be relevant in that world. In the scenario I just narrated, you can see that your digital twin is actually managing significant tasks on your behalf. It negotiates contracts, it generates incomes, it does work for you, it provides evidence of your performance, and it manages your money. Scary for a bank. The machine is trusted to perform these important tasks and becomes your main source of income. The digital twin therefore becomes the most valuable asset that you own. It's no longer your house, it's no longer your car, it's no longer your investment portfolio. And like any other traditional asset, it will need protection and financing. What is critical to understand is the scenario I just narrated, all the technology that needs to be here to empower and make that scenario real already exists. It's just not at scale and not connected. Now, in the next slide, I will introduce a fundamental notion when you work in strategy and innovation, which is the notion of strategic risk. And in other words, that's the risk of being irrelevant in the future. And I'll use an example to help you understand the shifting dynamic and the rise of digital assets versus traditional physical assets. And you would have understood that digital twins are, in my view, an emerging digital asset. Now, these slides present the world we know today on the left and the world banks and insurers have no idea about on the right. If you think about why banks and insurance exist, it only exists because their customer, us, want to own and value physical assets. Now just shift the underlying assumption slightly from people are going to own and value physical assets to people are going to own and value digital assets. The entire value chain collapsed. I'll give you an example. With my wife, we bought an apartment in Paris in 2009. If we were to sell it today, our capital gain would probably be 25 to 30%. Great. If in 2009 we had been smart enough to invest 100 euros at the time in Bitcoin, we would be multi-billionaire. That's an illustration of the emergence of digital assets. Now, think about it. I hold theoretically those two asset classes, my house and my crypto wallet. All the banks in the world, which are completely commoditized, can provide us with mortgages and with products to protect our house. As far as I know, no bank in the world can protect my digital wallet. No insurer in the world can protect it, and no bank can finance it. Which one do you think I care about? In the book, I theorize that digital twins and digital humans are actually emerging digital asset class, and they will need protection and financing. Now let's explore what a digital twin is and how they are evolving. I'll give you a definition from IBM, which is an extremely accurate definition. A digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical object or system across its life cycle. It uses real-time data and other sources to enable learning, reasoning, and dynamically recalibrating for improved decision-making. Digital twins have been around for about 2 decades, and I'll give you an example of why they are extremely relevant. They emerged in the heavy industry. if you build a nuclear plant that you cannot technically stop, you want to make sure that you have a digital model which replicates the exact same behavior of that plant so that you can understand and predict potential failure, so you can predict maintenance. The last thing you want is to stop it because one of the key parts has broken and you got to replace it. So from heavy industry applications, digital twins are now evolving closer to our day-to-day world. And the purpose of my book, you would have understood, is to help banks and insurers understand how and what they must change so that they are relevant in a world where people's assets and finances are managed by their digital twins. Now, they are quickly evolving towards the replication of human attributes, the replication of our identity, our digital identity, our digital reputation, our digital human network, but also the replication of our physical appearance and attributes. The shape of your face, the tone of your voice can be digitized and fully replicated. It's rendered possible by powerful visual interfaces, which are leveraging state-of-the-art visual effects. And even more interesting or scary, there is the replication of your knowledge and emotions. And that's creating an emerging form of digital intellectual property that you could own. It's rendered possible by artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, tacit knowledge automation, and soon quantum computing. Accelerated by the fast rise of the digital economy and the emergence of the metaverse, we are quickly leaping into a world where it will become difficult or impossible to differentiate the interaction we will be having with a digital twin, a real human, or a hybrid. Now, let's talk about the replication of our identity and physical traits. Digital identity is absolutely key to prove that you are who you say you are on digital channels. It's an incredibly complex challenge. It hasn't been solved yet holistically, but soon it will be. Now, why is that important? Identity is one of the most critical digital attributes enabling to create trust. And to illustrate the importance of that word trust, I will quote Dr. Rachel Botsman, who wrote on the topic of trust. And she said, if money is the currency for exchange, trust is the currency for interaction. And what it means that your digital identity will be a proxy for trust, for your digital twin to interact with other entities on the digital economy. And the metaverse could be one of those many channels. Now let's talk about the replication of our physical attributes, but also let's talk about digital neurosystems, or what I call the rise of smart avatars. Some tech companies are now playing in the converging space between artificial intelligence, neuroscience, and movie special effects. Not only these experts can create a digital version of you, but they can also replicate human emotions. Now, imagine that you are interacting with a digital human on the screen. And not only this machine looks like a real human, but the machine can also pick up the micro expression of your face. The AI which is running the machine is able to answer your question rationally, but it can also tune the facial response and the tone of the voice in accordance with your immediate state of mind. So this is powered by technology to leverage the nonverbal communication on top of advanced AI. And nonverbal communication is about 80% of the communication. Think about the power of these kind of technologies. Some large companies such as NatWest, Mercedes, Suncorp, Westpac are already using these kind of technologies on digital channels. These technologies will be absolutely pivotal in the scaling of digital twins and digital humans. Now let's dive into what's really fascinating and also really scary, but I choose to see fascinating. That is the replication of what makes you you and what makes you absolutely unique, and that's the way you think. That, again, can be digitally replicated. If you think about it, you are the byproduct of your capacity to learn, of your knowledge, of your skills, of your emotions, your experiences, your interests, and your passions in life. All that makes you absolutely unique. And the source of all this being you can be fully digitally replicated. Now, think about this in the context of the fourth economic revolution we live in. Very few of us produce physical things. If you work in the services industry, 70 to 80% of workers in the modern economies do, you are likely paid to generate ideas that materializes into decisions and actions with measurable outcomes. Now, if your digital twin can replicate the way you think and can make decisions on your behalf, do you even need to be at work? Theoretically, you could be wandering on a beach sipping margaritas while your digital twin is generating money for you. The consequences for you are absolutely massive. But in the next slide, I will explore some example of what's coming as a disruption for banks and insurers. Let's look at the disruption through the lens of two core pillars of modern companies, which are workforce management and customer interactions. From a workforce management, here's a list of questions you should ask yourself. How do you manage a workforce which is composed of humans and digital humans? How do you create and maintain culture? How do you maintain cohesion? How do you deal with delegation of authority when it comes to decision making? Will a machine override a human decision at some point? How do you need to train your management? What are the emerging skills that will define the managers but also the employees of the future? Now let's look at customer interactions. If you're a bank or if you're an insurance company, how do you KYC a digital human? How do you deal with identity theft for both your human customers but also digital humans? How do you build relevant and hyper-tailored communication targeting at digital humans? And on which channel do you do that? How do you communicate with non-emotional digital twins in charge of managing the finances of their owners? Let's now look at the disruption to the core activity of a bank being capital allocation. On the left, you have the current model, which is well known by every bank in the world. And on the right, a model which is completely unknown. For example, let's say that an employee is making $100,000 a year, exchanging its time and intellectual property with the employer. It's very well known, it's very low risk. Every bank in the world could allocate capital based on those qualifications. Now again, let's slightly change the scenario. On the right-hand side, the digital twin of a human is making $100,000 a year, the exact same amount of money, but not through direct employment, through thousands of transactions on the digital economy. Which prompts the following questions for a bank. How do you lend to a human on the basis of the revenue generated by its digital twin? How do you assess the risks? What security do you take against your lending? And these are just a few examples of many disruptions that I'm exploring in my book. Now, let's not shy away from the opportunities and the risks which are generated by this emerging technology. I think that we are at a pivotal point in time where we will soon have to make both individual and societal decisions. Let's look at the opportunities because that's what I choose to see. I think they are completely endless and digital twins could change the world we know. Ask yourself this question. What would you do if you had access to this capability? If you could fully replicate yourself? How would you use your time? And for what purpose? Now imagine a world where all the greatest minds who have ever lived could be digitally alive and teach us and guide humanity during tough time. Their wisdom, coupled with our modern technology and our modern knowledge, could help solve generational challenges. Imagine a Nelson Mandela being an advisor to the UN. We would need that, don't we? Imagine Newton teaming up with Tesla and Einstein to work in solving the problem of renewable energies. If you think we are far away from this, I invite you to check a project called GPT-3 from OpenAI. GPT-3 is a digital human that has been trained to absorb the entire content available on the web. It's been trained with 175 billion data points. GPT-3 is the ultimate digital twin of the human psyche. But please also bear in mind that this technology is still nascent. Now, let's not shy away from the risks and the challenges. The rise of digital twins and digital humans has the potential to increase existing inequality with an unseen magnitude. If you are lucky enough to have received an education, have had experiences which are reinforcing your employability, you are likely to benefit from this technology. But what about the rest of the world and the vast majority of these people who did not have the chance we did? Are we going to create new forms of digitally led, technologically led discrimination? And aren't we already? Now let's also talk about who can scale these technologies. There's only a handful of global companies which have the power and the scale and the means to scale these technologies. That's a lot of concentration of power. And to put it into perspective, some of these technologies have GDPs which have market capitalization which exceed the GDP of modern economies. They also raise lots of ethical, philosophical, and societal questions that should, and I hope, will be discussed in a public forum in the coming years. This concludes the introduction to my book, Digital Twin, The Next Human Revolution. If you want to know more, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Amazon. Please reach out if you have any questions or if you want to continue that conversation. So get ready for that next revolution, and thank you for listening.